Look at your life right now. Look at your calendar. Look at your text messages. Look at your bank account. How much of your time, energy, and money is being spent on things you absolutely do not want to do, simply because you are terrified of saying the word no? We are raised in a society that worships the martyr. We are taught that to be a good friend, a good daughter, or a good employee, we must be endlessly accommodating. We must have no limits. If someone needs us, we must drop everything. If someone crosses a line, we must smile, keep the peace, and swallow our discomfort. We think we are being nice, but in reality, we are slowly destroying ourselves. Welcome to the Book Vault. Set boundaries, find peace. A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by licensed therapist Nedra Glover Tawwab has spent over a decade in therapy rooms, listening to people who are burned out, depressed, and overwhelmed. And she discovered that behind almost every case of chronic burnout and relationship anxiety, there is one single glaring issue: a massive lack of boundaries. We do not have a time management problem. We have a boundary problem. Over the next 3 sessions, we are going to radically rewire how you interact with the people in your life. Chapter 1. The Anatomy of a Boundary. IT is not a wall. When people hear the word boundary, they panic. They picture a massive, aggressive brick wall. They think that setting a boundary means they are cutting people off, being selfish, or being cruel. Nedra Tawwab completely redefines the concept. A boundary is not a wall. A boundary is a door with a lock. A wall is built to keep everyone out permanently. It is driven by fear. A door with a lock is built so you can decide who gets to come in, when they get to come in, and how long they get to stay. It is driven by self-respect. Tawwab defines a boundary simply: boundaries are expectations and needs that help you feel safe and comfortable in your relationships. How do you know if you need boundaries? You do not need to look at your calendar. You just need to look at your physical and emotional symptoms. Tawwab identifies 3 massive red flags that your boundaries are collapsed. 1. Burnout. You are physically and emotionally exhausted. You wake up tired. You dread your daily tasks because your schedule is filled with obligations you never wanted to accept. 2. Avoidance. You start ignoring phone calls from specific friends. You take a different hallway at work to avoid a specific coworker. You are avoiding them because you do not have the tools to tell them to stop doing whatever is bothering you. 3. Resentment. This is the most toxic symptom of all. Resentment is the feeling of bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. But here is the brutal truth. You are often resentful of people for violating a boundary that you never actually set. You are furious at your friend for calling you at 11 p.m. every night to complain about her boyfriend. But you answer the phone every single time. You listen. You offer advice. You are harboring deep, toxic resentment toward her. But from her perspective, you are a willing participant. The lesson: you cannot be mad at people for crossing a line that you have drawn in invisible ink. If you are experiencing burnout, avoidance, or resentment, it is not because the world is evil. It is because you have abandoned yourself. You have allowed the door to be ripped off its hinges, and you are angry at the people walking through the open frame. To fix the resentment, you must reinstall the door. Chapter 2. The Spectrum of Boundaries. Porous, rigid, and healthy. Boundaries do not just exist as an on or off switch. They exist on a spectrum. Before you can fix your boundaries, you must diagnose what kind of boundary operating system you are currently running. According to Tawwab, there are 3 types of boundaries: porous, rigid, and healthy. People with porous boundaries are human sponges. They have absolutely no separation between themselves and other people. If you have porous boundaries, you overshare incredibly personal information with strangers. You are terrified of saying no, so you agree to things that actively harm your mental health. You take on other people's emotional baggage. If your friend is having a bad day, your entire day is ruined. You are a people pleaser. But Tawwab points out a difficult truth. People-pleasing is actually a form of manipulation. You are sacrificing your own needs in order to manipulate the other person into liking you. You are buying their approval with your exhaustion. Narrator. 2. Rigid boundaries. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum are rigid boundaries. People with rigid boundaries have been hurt in the past, so instead of building a door, they built a 50-foot steel wall. If you have rigid boundaries, you never share your feelings. You refuse to ask for help, even when you are drowning, because you view vulnerability as weakness. You cut people out of your life at the very first sign of conflict. You think you are protecting yourself, but you are actually just enforcing extreme isolation. A porous person lets everyone in and gets trampled. A rigid person lets no one in and starves to death emotionally. Narrator. 3. Healthy boundaries. The goal is the middle path. Healthy boundaries. A person with healthy boundaries has a deeply internalized sense of their own value. They can say no without apologizing and without over-explaining. They can hear the word no from a friend without taking it personally or throwing a tantrum. They can adapt. They know when to open the door and be incredibly vulnerable with a trusted partner, and they know exactly when to lock the door when a toxic coworker enters the room. Chapter 3. The 6 types of boundaries. We often think of boundaries only in terms of our physical bodies, but human beings are infinitely more complex than that. To achieve total peace, you must defend 6 distinct territories of your life. If even one of these territories is left unguarded, resentment will seep in. Nedra Tawwab categorizes the 6 types of boundaries. 1. Physical boundaries. This dictates your personal space and your physical body. It is your right to determine who touches you, how close people stand to you, and what you put into your body. Violation. A coworker who hugs you when you prefer handshakes, or a family member who constantly comments on your weight and pushes you to eat food you don't want. The boundary. I am not a hugger. I prefer a handshake. Or, please do not comment on my plate. 2. Sexual boundaries. This governs your comfort level with sexual touch, intimacy, and sexual comments. It requires enthusiastic consent. Violation. A partner pressuring you into acts you dislike, or a coworker making crude, joking sexual remarks in the office. The boundary. I do not find those jokes funny. Please stop making them around me. 3. Intellectual boundaries. This is the boundary that protects your thoughts, ideas, and curiosities. It is the expectation that your opinions will be treated with respect, even if they are disagreed with. Violation. A friend who constantly belittles your political views, talks over you, or calls your ideas stupid. The boundary. We can disagree, but I expect you to speak to me without calling my beliefs stupid. If the conversation continues to be disrespectful, I will end it. 4. Emotional boundaries. This protects your feelings and your emotional energy. It dictates how much emotional labor you are willing to perform for others, and how people speak to you. Violation. A friend who uses you as an unpaid therapist, dumping their trauma on you for hours without ever asking how you are doing. Or a parent who invalidates your feelings by saying, too sensitive. The boundary. I want to support you, but I do not have the emotional capacity to listen to this right now. We can talk about this later when I am in a better headspace. 5. Material boundaries. This governs your possessions, your money, your car, your clothes, your home. Violation. A sibling who borrows your clothes and ruins them, or a friend who constantly forgets their wallet and expects you to pay for dinner, or a neighbor who borrows your tools and never returns them. The boundary. I will not be able to lend you my car anymore. Notice there is no lengthy explanation required. The no is a complete sentence. 6. Time boundaries. For busy professionals, this is the most critical boundary of all. Time is your only non-renewable resource. This boundary protects how you spend your hours. Violation. A boss who emails you on Sunday morning expecting a reply, a friend who is consistently an hour late to every lunch date, or a committee that demands you volunteer your weekends. The boundary. I do not check work emails after 6 p.m. Or, to the late friend, I can only wait for 15 minutes. If you are not here by then, I will have to leave. The lesson. Look at that list. Physical, sexual, intellectual, emotional, material, time. Which one made your stomach drop? Which territory in your life is currently being invaded? You must identify the specific type of boundary being crossed before you can craft the language to defend it. Chapter 4. The myth of mind reading. Communication is your responsibility. We now arrive at the most painful, ego-crushing reality check in Nedra Tawwab's entire book. When people cross our boundaries, we get incredibly angry. We vent to our partners. We say, "I cannot believe she did that. How could she not know that would upset me?" It's common sense. Here is Tawwab's brutal response. There is no such thing as common sense. People do not know what you want until you tell them. We expect the people in our lives to be mind readers. We think that if we sigh heavily enough, if we roll our eyes, or if we act passive-aggressively, the other person will magically decipher our body language and instantly change their behavior. When they don't change, we feel victimized. This is a psychological delusion. You are holding people accountable to rules you have never spoken out loud. You are playing a game where you are the only one who knows the rulebook, and you are furious that the other players keep making fouls. Why do we do this? We rely on mind reading because we are terrified of the discomfort of direct communication. We think that if we speak directly, we are being mean. We hope that the other person will just figure it out, so we can avoid the awkwardness of conflict. Narrator. The necessity of verbalization. Tawwab establishes an unbreakable law of human relationships. If you do not verbalize the boundary does not exist. It is just a wish. You cannot set a boundary with a dirty look. You cannot set a boundary by complaining to a third party. You cannot set a boundary by hoping they notice how tired you are. You must open your mouth, use your vocal cords, and state the expectation clearly, plainly, and directly. If your mother-in-law keeps showing up unannounced at your house, you cannot just take a long time to answer the door and hope she gets the hint. She will never get the hint. You must look her in the eye and say, "I love seeing you, but I need you to call and ask before you come over. If you come over unannounced, I will not be able to let you in." Yes, it is deeply uncomfortable. Your heart will race. Your palms will sweat. But the discomfort of setting a boundary lasts for 5 minutes. The discomfort of not setting a boundary, the silent, boiling resentment of having your home invaded every weekend, lasts for decades. Choose your discomfort. Chapter 5. The two-step formula. Clarity is kindness. When we finally muster the courage to set a boundary, we almost always ruin it in the delivery. Because we are terrified of conflict, we wrap our boundary in a massive, confusing blanket of apologies, excuses, and justifications. We talk in circles. We hope that if we give the other person a 10-minute explanation of why we are saying no, they will take pity on us and validate our choice. Nedra Tawwab teaches a profound rule of communication. Clarity is kindness. Confusion is cruel. When you over-explain, you are giving the other person a dozen different data points to argue with. If you say, "I can't come to your party because I'm so tired and I have a headache," you have just invited them to solve your problem. They will say, "Just take an aspirin and come for an hour. You'll wake up when you get here." You gave them a weak excuse and they dismantled it. Now you are trapped. Narrator. The JADE trap. To communicate a boundary effectively, you must stop doing what therapists call JADE. Justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining. You do not need to submit a legal brief to the Supreme Court to prove you have the right to say no. No is a complete sentence. Your discomfort is enough justification. Your exhaustion is enough justification. Tawwab provides a simple, devastatingly effective two-step formula for stating any boundary. Step 1. Be clear and direct. State what you need or what you will not tolerate. Step 2. State the expectation or consequence. State what happens next. Narrator. The scripts. Let us look at how this sounds in the real world. The chronic complainer. You have a friend who calls you every day to complain about her life for an hour, draining your emotional battery. Oh, the weak boundary. "I'm really busy right now. Maybe we can talk later. I just have a lot going on." They will just call back tomorrow. Oh, the Tawwab formula. I care about you, but I do not have the emotional capacity to listen to venting today. I need to get off the phone now. The late friend. A friend leaves you sitting at a restaurant for 45 minutes every time you meet. Oh, the weak boundary. Hey, you're really late again. It's kind of annoying. No consequence. Oh, the Tawwab formula. My time is valuable. If you are more than 15 minutes late to our plans, I am going to leave and go home. The intrusive question. A family member constantly asks when you are going to have a baby or get married. Oh, the weak boundary. Smiling uncomfortably and laughing it off, or making a joke. Oh, the Tawwab formula. I am not discussing my family planning. Please stop asking me about it. The lesson. Do you hear the difference? The formula is calm. It is devoid of high emotion. It does not attack the other person's character. It simply states a rule of engagement. Speak the boundary plainly. Do not raise your voice. Do not apologize for having a limit. State the rule and let the silence hang in the air. Chapter 6. The art of the follow-through, action over words. You have spoken the words. You delivered the two-step formula perfectly. You think the battle is over. It is not. Speaking the boundary is only 10% of the work. The remaining 90% is the hardest part of human psychology. The follow-through. Narrator. The toddler test. Tawwab explains that adults respond to new boundaries exactly the same way toddlers do. If you tell a toddler, do not touch the hot stove, what is the very first thing the toddler does? They reach their finger out and slowly inch it toward the stove while staring you directly in the eye. They are testing the fence. They want to know if the rule is real or if you are just making noise. When you set a boundary with an adult, they will test it. If you tell your boss, I will not answer emails on the weekend, I guarantee you that your boss will send you an email at 9 a.m. on Saturday. They are testing the fence. If you answer that email, you have just destroyed your own boundary. Narrator. The consequence of inaction. A boundary is not what you say. A boundary is what you do. If you tell your friend you will leave the restaurant if they are 15 minutes late, and they arrive 20 minutes late to find you still sitting there looking angry, you have taught them that your words are meaningless. You have taught them that there is no consequence for disrespecting your time. Tawwab warns that when you state a boundary and fail to enforce it, you actually make the situation worse than before. You train the people around you that they can walk all over you, as long as they are willing to listen to a brief, empty lecture first. The tactic. You must marry your words to your actions. If the boss emails on Saturday, you do not reply. You do not even open the email. You wait until Monday at 9 a.m., and you reply as if nothing happened. If the friend is 20 minutes late, you leave the restaurant. When they call you from the empty table, you say, as I mentioned, I could only wait 15 minutes. I have gone home. We can try again next week. If the family member brings up the intrusive question about having a baby, you stand up, say, I asked you not to bring this up. I am leaving the room now, and you physically walk away. The follow-through is not cruel. It is the ultimate act of self-respect. When people realize the fence is electrified, they stop touching it. Chapter 7. Navigating pushback, the weapons of resistance. When you start enforcing boundaries, do not expect a standing ovation. Do not expect the people in your life to say, wow, thank you so much for establishing these healthy limits. I respect you so much more now. That is a fantasy. When you set a boundary, the system is disrupted. People who have benefited from your lack of boundaries, people who have enjoyed using your money, your time, and your emotional energy for free, will be highly upset that the free ride is over. They will fight back. Tawwab calls this pushback. If you are not prepared for pushback, you will cave. You must learn to recognize the 4 primary weapons of resistance. Narrator. The pushback matrix. 1. The guilt trip. This is the most common weapon. They will try to make your boundary sound like a moral failing. Example. I guess I'm just a terrible mother then. I'll just sit here all alone on Sunday while you relax. Your response. Do not argue with the guilt. Use the broken record technique. Repeat the boundary calmly. I am taking Sunday to rest. I will see you next week. 2. The silent treatment. When you set a boundary, they punish you by withdrawing their affection. They ignore your texts or give you one-word answers, hoping the silence will make you so anxious that you apologize and revoke the boundary. Your response. Let them be silent. The silent treatment is a manipulation tactic. Do not chase them. Enjoy the silence. When they realize the punishment isn't breaking you, they will eventually speak. 3. The victim card. They twist the narrative to make it seem like your healthy boundary is an aggressive attack against them. Example: you're always criticizing me. I can't do anything right. I guess I just won't ever ask you for help again. Your response: do not take the bait. Do not defend your character. I am not criticizing you. I am simply stating that I cannot loan you money anymore. 4. The debate. They try to turn your boundary into a negotiation. They want to argue the logistics to prove your boundary is illogical. Example: why can't you answer emails at 8 p.m.? It only takes 2 minutes. You have your phone in your hand anyway. Your response: remember, Jade, do not justify or explain. Because my workday ends at 5 p.m. I will look at it tomorrow. Chapter 8. The anatomy of guilt, the boundary hangover. You set the boundary. You survived the pushback. You held the line. You expect to feel empowered. You expect to feel free and peaceful. Instead, you feel sick to your stomach. You feel a crushing, overwhelming wave of guilt. You feel like the worst person on the planet. You are consumed with the urge to pick up the phone, call the person, apologize profusely, and take the boundary back. Welcome to the boundary hangover. Narrator. The illusion of guilt. Nedra Tawwab validates this feeling deeply in her therapy practice. She tells her clients that feeling guilty after setting a boundary is practically universal. But you must understand the true neurological and psychological nature of this guilt. We are taught that guilt is an alarm bell that rings when we do something bad. If you steal a car, you feel guilty, and that is a healthy, functioning moral compass. But when it comes to boundaries, your guilt compass is broken. You do not feel guilty because you did something wrong. You feel guilty because you did something new. You have spent your entire life operating under the identity of the people pleaser. Your brain associates safety with making everyone else happy at your own expense. When you suddenly say no, you violate decades of subconscious programming. Your brain panics. It interprets the discomfort of the new behavior as a moral failing. It floods your system with guilt to force you back into your old, familiar, compliant self. Narrator. Riding the wave. Do not let the guilt lie to you. Setting a boundary is an act of profound self-care, and self-care is never a crime. When the boundary hangover hits, you must treat it like a physical illness. 1. Acknowledge it. I am feeling massive guilt right now. That is normal because I am changing a lifelong habit. 2. Do not act on it. This is critical. The urge to text the person and apologize will be overwhelming. Put your phone in another room. Go for a walk. Take a shower. 3. Ride the wave. Guilt is an emotion, and emotions are temporary chemical states. It will peak and then it will subside. It usually takes 24 to 48 hours for the boundary hangover to clear. If you can survive the hangover without collapsing the boundary, something miraculous happens. The next time you set a boundary, the guilt is 10% less. The time after that, it is 50% less. Eventually, the guilt disappears entirely, replaced by the profound, quiet peace of absolute self-respect. You must be willing to sit in the fire of your own guilt to forge the steel of your freedom. Chapter 9. Navigating Family, the Trap of Enmeshment. There is a phrase in our society that has caused more psychological damage, more depression, and more prolonged trauma than almost any other combination of words in the English language. But it's your mother. But he's your brother. But they're family. We are conditioned to believe that sharing DNA is a lifetime free pass for abuse, disrespect, and boundary violations. If a stranger spoke to you the way your toxic family members speak to you, you would call the police. But because they are family, you are told to sit down, smile, and take it. Nedra Tawwab destroys this toxic loophole. Biology is not an excuse for toxicity. Narrator. The crisis of adult transitions. The primary reason family boundaries are so difficult is because of a failure to transition. When you are a child, your parents have absolute authority over you. They tell you what to wear, what to eat, and when to sleep. But when you become an adult, the relationship is supposed to transition from a hierarchy, parent to child, to a peer relationship, adult to adult. Many parents refuse to make this transition. They still view you as an extension of themselves, and they view your independent choices, who you marry, how you raise your kids, where you live, as a direct threat to their authority. When a family system lacks any emotional separation between its members, therapists call it enmeshment. In an enmeshed family, individuality is viewed as a betrayal. If the mother is angry, everyone must be angry. If the father doesn't like your spouse, you are expected to divorce them. Your business is everyone's business. There are no doors, no locks, and no privacy. Narrator. How to set family boundaries. Setting a boundary in an enmeshed family will cause a massive explosion. They will accuse you of abandoning them. You must use the two-step formula, and you must be prepared for the highest level of guilt and pushback you will ever experience. Let's look at the scripts. At the criticizing parent. Mom, I want to spend time with you, but I will not tolerate comments about my weight. If you mention my body again, I will pack my bags and leave the house. And when she does it, you must physically leave. At the gossip. I do not want to hear about my sister's marital problems. Please stop telling me her secrets behind her back. I am changing the subject now. The unannounced visitor. I need you to respect the privacy of my home. If you do not call before coming over, I will not open the door. Narrator. The last resort. Going low contact or no contact. Sometimes, the boundary is not respected. Sometimes, the toxicity is so severe, so abusive, and so damaging to your mental health that a verbal boundary is entirely useless. Tawwab validates a deeply painful reality. You are allowed to walk away from your family. You can choose to go low contact, only seeing them once a year at a public restaurant, keeping conversations strictly superficial. Or, you can choose to go no contact, completely severing the relationship to protect your survival. Going no contact is analogous to emotional amputation. It is a tragedy. You will grieve the loss of the parent you wished you had. But sometimes, amputation is the only way to stop the infection from killing the patient. You do not owe anyone your sanity, not even the people who gave you life. Chapter 10. The Modern Workplace. We now shift from the family dining table to the corporate boardroom. The modern workplace is a boundaryless nightmare. With the invention of smartphones and remote work, the physical boundary between the office and the home has been completely obliterated. Corporations love employees with porous boundaries. They call them team players. They call them hustlers. In reality, they are exploiting your fear of being fired to extract free labor from you on your nights and weekends. If you do not set boundaries at work, the company will take until you physically collapse from burnout. And when you collapse, they will simply replace you in a week. Narrator. The myth of the emergency. The biggest lie in the corporate world is the concept of the emergency. Unless you are an emergency room surgeon, a firefighter, or a first responder, there are no true emergencies in your job. A missed deadline on a marketing report is not an emergency. A client being angry about a typo is not an emergency. These are inconveniences. When your boss emails you at 9 p.m. on a Friday with urgent in the subject line, they are projecting their poor time management onto you. You must establish time boundaries and communication boundaries. Narrator. The scripts for the workplace. Setting boundaries at work is delicate because there is a power dynamic. You need the paycheck. You cannot simply yell at your boss. You must use professional, solution-oriented language that establishes your limits without sounding insubordinate. The after-hours emailer. Do not announce a boundary, just execute it. If they email you at 8 p.m., do not reply. Reply at 9 a.m. the next morning. If they confront you, say, I disconnect from my inbox at 6 p.m. to ensure I am fully rested and productive for the next workday. If there is a true, life or death emergency, you can call my cell phone, but I will process all emails during business hours. The over-delegating boss, your boss hands you a massive new project when you are already drowning. Do not just say no. Use the priority script. I would be happy to take on this new project. However, my plate is currently full with Project A and Project B. Which of those two would you like me to deprioritize or delay so I can focus on this new one? This forces the boss to manage the workload rather than forcing you to work 80 hours. At the gossip coworker, I prefer to keep my work relationships focused on the projects. I am not comfortable discussing other colleagues behind their backs. Chapter 11. Setting boundaries with yourself, the ultimate master. We have blamed our parents. We have blamed our friends. We have blamed our bosses. Now, Nedra Tawwab forces us to look in the mirror. What happens when you are the one violating your own boundaries? What happens when you promise yourself you are going to save money this month, and then you impulsively spend $300 online at 2 a.m.? What happens when you promise yourself you are going to go to sleep at 10 p.m., but you stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling through social media? You are abandoning yourself. Narrator. The erosion of self-trust. Setting boundaries with others dictates how the world treats you. Setting boundaries with yourself dictates your level of self-trust and self-esteem. When you constantly break promises to yourself, you subconsciously teach your brain that you are unreliable. You teach yourself that your goals do not matter, and your well-being does not matter. This chronic self-abandonment is the root cause of massive underlying anxiety. You cannot demand that the world respect your boundaries if you refuse to respect your own. Narrator. The domains of self-boundaries. You must apply the two-step formula internally. You must parent yourself. 1. Financial boundaries, the violation. Spending money you don't have to soothe your emotions. The self-boundary. I am unfollowing all influencer accounts that trigger my urge to shop. I am deleting my saved credit card information from my browser to create friction before I buy. 2. Technology boundaries. The violation. Doom scrolling for 3 hours a day, comparing your life to strangers on the internet, and destroying your mental health. The self-boundary. I will not bring my phone into the bedroom. I will charge it in the kitchen. My bedroom is for sleep only. 3. Time boundaries, procrastination, the violation. Wasting the weekend avoiding a difficult task, causing yourself immense stress. The self-boundary. I will work on this terrifying project for exactly 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I have permission to stop. But I must start. The tactic. Discipline is not a punishment. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. When you put your phone away and go to sleep, you are loving the version of yourself that has to wake up tomorrow morning. When you stick to your budget, you are loving the version of yourself that wants to retire in peace. To find true peace, you must become your own strongest protector. You must hold the line against your own destructive impulses. When you finally learn to trust yourself, the opinions, demands, and pushback of the outside world lose all their power over you. Conclusion. The landscape of peace. You have reached the end of the methodology. Look at the psychological fortress you have built over these 3 masterclass sessions. You no longer believe the lie that to be loved, you must be consumed. You know that a boundary is a door with a lock, and you hold the key. You know that expecting people to read your mind is a delusion. You possess the 2-step formula. Clarity is kindness. No is a complete sentence. You know that a boundary without a follow-through is just a wish, and you are prepared to enforce the consequence. You will not negotiate with the guilt trip, the silent treatment, or the victim card. You will ride the wave of the boundary hangover, knowing that the guilt is an illusion masking your growth. You are no longer trapped by the enmeshment of your family. You are no longer a 24/7 slave to your workplace. And you are no longer abandoning yourself. Narrator. The final awakening. For your entire life, you thought that setting boundaries would make people leave you. You thought that if you said no, you would end up entirely alone. Nedra Tawwab offers one final, beautiful truth. Setting boundaries will cost you relationships. Yes, but it will only cost you the relationships that were built on your exploitation. The people who leave when you set a boundary are the people who were only there because you had no boundaries to begin with. The people who truly love you, the people who want you not just what you can do for them, will respect the door. They will be glad you built the lock because it means they finally get to interact with the authentic, rested, peaceful version of who you actually are. Your peace is not found by making the world happy. Your peace is found behind the door you have the courage to close. You are safe now. Turn the lock.